Robert Mueller finally comes forward and makes an enormous statement, and the Supreme Court speaks out about abortion. We'll explain. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Well, you know that feeling when you've planned out an entire show, and then 5 minutes before the show, the entire show gets blown up because Robert Mueller decides that he finally will speak. It's like Greta Garbo. Finally Mueller speaks. We'll get to all of that in a second. We will break down every word he said, what it means. It's cryptic. It's fascinating. We'll get to all of it. First, in 1966, Alan Greenspan famously said deficit spending is simply a scheme for the confiscation of wealth. This is obviously true. With the federal deficit currently touching $1 trillion per year, what are you doing to protect your savings from this confiscation scheme? Alan Greenspan offered one solution, saying gold stands in the way of this insidious process. Can you afford another hit to your retirement like the last downturn when the S&P dropped 50%? Hedge against inflation, hedge against uncertainty and instability with precious metals. The company I trust with precious metal purchases is Birch Gold Group. Right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can even move your IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA backed by physical gold and silver, which is perfect for those who want to protect their hard-earned retirement savings from any future geopolitical uncertainty. Birch Gold Group has thousands of satisfied customers, countless 5-star reviews, and A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Contact Birch Gold Group, get a free information kit on physical precious metals. See if diversifying into gold and silver makes sense for you. This comprehensive 16-page kit reveals how gold and silver can protect your savings, how you can legally move your IRA or 401k out of risky stocks and bonds into a precious metals IRA, if that's something you're into. To get that no-cost, no-obligation kit, text BEN to 474747. Again, text the word BEN, my name, to 474747. Okay, so this morning was a very big morning. Greta Garbo speaks. Robert Mueller, who's been absolutely silent for nigh on 2 years at this point, came to the podium to announce that he was done. Mic drop, he's out. Now, we sort of have to back up for a second and explain what Robert Mueller's role was supposed to be here. He was the special prosecutor in what was a counterintelligence investigation originally. The counterintelligence investigation was about Russian collusion, Russian participation in the 2016 election. And on the basis of that, Mueller brought a bevy of prosecutions against people who were part of the Trump campaign and not part of the Trump campaign, against people like Paul Manafort, people like George Papadopoulos, and also against a bunch of Russians who were actually involved in election interference. Right, so that was Bob Mueller's mandate. And then that mandate expanded to include investigation of obstruction of justice. Now, Bob Mueller sort of claimed in the Mueller report that he didn't actually have the authority to recommend a prosecution of the President of the United States because of a 1973 Office of Legal Counsel, Department of Justice memo that said a sitting president cannot be indicted. That memo is somewhat controversial. There are some people who think the president should be able to be indicted. Some people think he shouldn't. But Mueller made clear in his report that the OLC ruling he was going to abide by. Now, just because he was abiding by the OLC ruling does not mean that he would have prosecuted Trump if he had the opportunity to do so. In other words, the OLC, the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel memo, was a threshold issue. It's what we call the threshold issue in law. The threshold issue is, if that applies, can you prosecute the president? That does not answer the question of, if it did not apply, would you prosecute the president? So what Mueller's report basically said is, we can't prosecute the president, and we're not even going to reach the other issue, which is, should the president be prosecuted if there were no Office of Legal Counsel memo? Now, William Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, had suggested that Mueller said that he did not see sufficient evidence in the absence of the OLC memo to recommend prosecution. Right? That was what Barr actually testified before Congress. Now, unless Barr perjured himself, both of those things can be true. That Mueller saw the OLC memo as prohibiting him from prosecuting, and also, even without the OLC memo, he wouldn't necessarily have the evidence to prosecute Trump under obstruction of justice statutes. The Mueller report itself is very damning of Trump's behavior. And so basically what Mueller did, and I said this at the time, what Mueller did is he basically set out the pathway to impeachment if Democrats chose to take it. It was obvious that prosecutors in Mueller's office saw the president as politically impeachable, if not criminally prosecutable. And those are two different standards. Criminally prosecutable is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Now you have to go to prison. You have to pay the legal penalty. Impeachment is a political standard that does not require a criminal trial in the same way that you normally would. Reasonable doubt doesn't come into it. So there is an impeachment trial in the Senate, but that does not require a standard of evidence adduced beyond a reasonable doubt. So all of that is predicate to what Mueller had to say today. So Mueller comes to the podium, and everybody is sort of reading this Mueller statement as a Rorschach test. So people who want to see Trump impeached are saying, here's Mueller providing evidence for impeachment, and here is Mueller going after William Barr. People who are defenders of the president are saying Mueller's telling us what we already knew, basically. Mueller isn't adding anything. I think the truth is sort of somewhere in between, as always. So Robert Mueller finally comes to the podium, and his basic statement is, I'm not solving your problems for you. I put out a 448-page report. If you want to read it, it's right there in the public view. You can see it. We're going to go through Mueller's actual statement here in great detail, so you're going to get the whole thing plus analysis. So here's Robert Mueller. He gets up in front of that podium, and finally, Greta Garbo speaks.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. 2 years ago, the acting Attorney General asked me to serve as special counsel, and he created the special counsel's office. The appointment order directed the office to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. This included investigating any links or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Now, I have not spoken publicly during our investigation. I'm speaking out today because our investigation is complete. The Attorney General has made the report on our investigation largely public. We are formally closing the special counsel's office, and as well, I'm resigning from the Department of Justice to return to private life.
I'll sit there for 1 second. So the fact is that 1,000 Democrat screams can be heard right now. Mueller is not going to do their work for them. In other words, if Democrats wish to impeach, it is now on them. You know, there was this weird hope that was still out there from the Krasenstein brothers wing of the Democratic Party that Mueller had not closed the Office of Special Counsel because he was secretly working on stuff that we didn't know about yet. Obviously, that is untrue. Mueller is saying, I am out. My report is done. We are done here. Everything is done. If Congress wants to pick up the ball, that would be on Congress, and that's where he goes next.
I'll make a few remarks about the results of our work. But beyond these few remarks, it is important that the office's written work speak for itself. Let me begin where the appointment order begins, and that is interference in the 2016 presidential election. As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. The indictment alleges that they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign. They stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate. And at the same time, as the grand jury alleged in a separate indictment, a private Russian entity engaged in a social media operation where Russian citizens posed as Americans in order to influence an election.
Pause it there for a second. So first, let us point out, this entire thing began as an investigation, not really a criminal investigation, a counterintelligence investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. The fact that it then morphed into a quote-unquote criminal investigation was kind of weird, because the fact is that the counterintelligence investigation allows all sorts of resources to be brought to bear that wouldn't necessarily be available in a criminal investigation without proper proof. So this is one of the complaints of Team Trump, the Trump campaign. What they say is, why were counterintelligence measures being used that caught us up in them without any sort of criminal standard being applied? We're domestic American citizens. The use of FISA warrants against Carter Page, for example, without proper evidence, that seems more like a counterintelligence investigation than a criminal investigation, but Carter Page is an American citizen, and the standard ought to be higher. So when we talk about the difference between a counterintelligence investigation and a criminal investigation, this becomes very important. The Mueller team and the investigation generally has straddled that line, and it's made for some real awkwardness because people don't know which resources are being brought to bear and who the target is. Is the target Russian actors, and then Trump being in ancillary fashion swept up into the investigation, or was the target Team Trump? And that confusion has led to all sorts of animus on the part of Team Trump, I think not entirely unjustifiably, and a lot of animus on the other side from people saying, listen, we're not targeting Team Trump. We're trying to stop Russian election interference. That was our job. So what are you ripping on us for? Mueller continues.
These indictments contain allegations, and we are not commenting on the guilt or the innocence of any specific defendant. Every defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. The indictments allege, and the other activities in our report describe, efforts to interfere in our political system. They needed to be investigated and understood, and that is among the reasons why the Department of Justice established our office. That is also a reason we investigated efforts to obstruct the investigation. The matters we investigated were of paramount importance. It was critical for us to obtain full and accurate information from every person we questioned. When a subject of an investigation obstructs that investigation or lies to investigators, it strikes at the core of the government's effort to find the truth and hold wrongdoers accountable. Let me say a word about the report. The report has two parts, addressing the two main issues we were asked to investigate. The first volume of the report details numerous efforts emanating from Russia to influence the election. This volume includes a discussion of the Trump campaign's response to this activity, as well as our conclusion that there was insufficient evidence to charge a broader conspiracy.
So we're going to get to more what Robert Mueller says here in a second. First, it is worthwhile noting that when he talks about obstruction, and you'll see later, he talks at length about obstruction of justice and President Trump and all the rest, he did not bring obstruction of justice charges against anyone. Okay, obstruction of justice charges were not brought against, for example, Donald Trump Jr. for theoretically lying to him in some way. Obstruction of justice charges were not brought against Donald McGahn. Those people are not barred from prosecution. And so for all the talk about how Mueller is going to say, and you'll hear him say it later, that the president was not cleared of obstruction of justice under this investigative standard, the fact is he could have prosecuted a bunch of people in the Trump administration without having to worry about the OLC ruling. Mueller did not decide to recommend that. So that is worth noting here, too, because Trump isn't the only member of Team Trump. And we're going to get to more of Robert Mueller's very important statement in just 1 second. First, you shouldn't have to choose between overpriced designer sunglasses and cheap shades. They're not going to last you this summer. That is why I'll never wear anything other than Movement sunglasses. They really are fantastic. You've heard us talk about Movement disrupting the watch industry. Now they're doing it with sunglasses. The Los Angeles-based accessories premium brand has hundreds of affordable sunglass styles to choose from, constructed with durable acetate, lightweight materials for that perfect, reliable fit. You don't have to choose between style and function. You get both. I love Movement watches, and their sunglasses are just terrific as well. With their free shipping and returns policy, you can try on as many styles as you want right from home. My wife has Movement sunglasses. I have Movement sunglasses as well. They are awesome, and they're not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Movement sunglasses start at $60. No pair prices over $95, so you are guaranteed to find a style you love with quality that doesn't break the bank. Get 15% off today with free shipping and free returns by going to mvmt.com/Shapiro. See why Movement keeps growing. Check out their expanding collection. Go to mvmt.com/Shapiro. Join the movement. That's mvmt.com/Shapiro. Go check them out right now. Great company, and their product is awesome. I love it. I mean, I'm wearing a Movement watch right now. You can see it right here upon my wrist. I'd be wearing sunglasses too, but that's inappropriate for my studio show. Go to movement.com, mvmt.com/Shapiro, and join the movement. Okay, Robert Mueller continues with his big, long-awaited statement. Again, this is the first time he has spoken publicly in years.
And in the second volume, the report describes the results and analysis of our obstruction of justice investigation involving the president. The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting attorney general apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
Pause it there. Now, that is a line that people are jumping on, particularly members of the media. If we had evidence that the president did not commit a crime, we would have said so. That is not even close to a prosecutorial standard. That is not close to a prosecutorial standard. It's absurd, frankly, that Mueller would spill that in public. Because the job of the special counsel is not to exonerate the president on charges. The job of the special counsel is, in fact, to determine whether there is evidence sufficient to prosecute. Can you imagine if every prosecutor said, listen, I can't clear this guy. Can't clear him. That shifts the burden of proof to the defendant, right? The way that it works in our criminal justice system is you actually have to prove guilt. You don't have to prove innocence. So what he is saying there is that when Trump says he was exonerated, that's nonsense, right? This is obviously Mueller subtweeting Trump. Trump has been saying he was exonerated. I have said all along since the day of the Mueller report, no, he was not exonerated, but there was not evidence sufficient to charge, according to Mueller himself. Mueller is obviously subtweeting the president, but he's confusing the standard in the process. Now, there are a lot of people who are saying what this really is Mueller saying to Congress, listen, it's on you guys, right? Because the standard when it comes to Congress is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I didn't clear him. That means that there is some evidence of obstruction of justice. If you guys want to take that and run, all you guys. But that is not his purview, right? He's a special counsel. His job is not to recommend impeachment to Congress. That's the legislative branch's job. You now have a member of the executive branch who apparently is effectively saying to Congress, if you guys want to impeach the president, it's all on you guys, all you. It's very weird stuff that Mueller is doing here. He's acting defensive, and it really, frankly, I don't think that it's up to his standard of clarity for him to do that. I've been a long-time defender of Mueller. I've said that I think the man is honest. I think that he has been doing his work honestly, but I don't think that it is particularly honest for a special counsel to get up there and say, we didn't clear the president. That was not your job. That was not your job. Now, I understand you're pissed off that Trump is falsely claiming he was exonerated when you said nothing about exoneration or prosecution. With that said, that is not the legal standard that ought to be applied right here, and it's kind of dangerous to have special counsels basically reversing the burden of proof and saying that we didn't exonerate Trump. Not your job to exonerate Trump. Okay, so in a second, we're going to continue with Robert Mueller's statement. And Guy Benson points out, and he's exactly correct, if Robert Mueller had the evidence, Mueller could have identified criminal conduct and recommended charges, and then let the DOJ decide whether the OLC guidance would or would not permit those charges being filed against the sitting president of the United States. Instead, he decided not to recommend anything. We'll get to his statements about the OLC now. So here is Robert Mueller continuing with his statements about obstruction.
We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime. The introduction to the Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Even if the charge is kept under seal and hidden from public view, that too is prohibited.
There. So now what people are saying is that the Attorney General William Barr must have lied, because what Barr said is that Mueller told him that he was not going to charge Trump even in absence of the OLC statute, or that he didn't have evidence sufficient even under the OLC statute. Here it seems to be saying what Robert Mueller, the way people are reading it, if they don't like President Trump and if they want to prosecute Trump or impeach him, the way that they're reading it, it's a plausible read, is that Robert Mueller is basically saying we didn't reach a determination, and we didn't reach a determination because the OLC rules prevent us from making a determination. Now, that's not actually true, right? That part's not actually true. You could make a determination as to whether the president ought to be prosecuted and then say, but OLC rules forbid it. That's not actually what Mueller is saying. What Mueller is actually saying, to be legally specific, what Mueller is actually saying, I think here, is that the OLC rules do not allow us to prosecute the president. Because the OLC rules do not allow us to prosecute the president, it was not important for us to actually issue a ruling as to whether he is prosecutable, because he is not, in fact, prosecutable. So what that means is we did not actually make the determination. So then the question becomes, why were you bothering to investigate this in the first place? If, according to Mueller, the OLC opinion prevents prosecution, then why did you bother investigating obstruction of justice at any point here? Because the president is not prosecutable. So why did we just spend $30 million investigating obstruction of justice just to come to a conclusion that you could have reached in the first 5 minutes, which is OLC rules forbid us from ruling on this sort of stuff? What is the point of this? Now, what is the point of this question is leading critics of the president and fans of impeachment to say what Mueller was really doing is on the public dime he was setting up an impeachment inquiry. Because again, what Mueller is saying here is OLC rules forbid me from prosecuting the president, therefore I did not reach any sort of ruling on whether the president is or is not prosecutable. So people are rightly saying, okay, so what was your job here? Why were you investigating? Right? If you're forbidden from prosecuting for a particular case of murder, for example, let's say that there's a double indemnity rule. O.J. Simpson was acquitted on his ex-wife's murder. Let's say that the LAPD opens up a new investigation on the basis of no new evidence about O.J.'s murder of his ex-wife. Well, he's not prosecutable under current criminal law in the United States, right? There's a double jeopardy provision that prevents you from prosecuting someone twice for the same crime. Let's say the LAPD does all of that, and then they come out with a statement. They say, by the way, we kind of think that O.J. was guilty, turns out. Okay, why are you wasting your time? That's the question here. Why is Robert Mueller wasting his time on investigating obstruction of justice if he knew in the first 30 seconds of his appointment that he had no capacity to actually issue any sort of opinion on prosecuting the president? And the answer that's being given by some is that what he's actually trying to do is set up the predicate for an impeachment inquiry into the president by Congress of the United States. I think that is probably right. I think that Mueller, in his heart of hearts, wants to see Trump impeached. I think he thinks that Trump is guilty, not guilty enough for him to prosecute, and not possible to prosecute him under the OLC, but certainly guilty enough for impeachment, which again has a different criminal standard, not the criminal standard of the criminal justice system. It's a political standard. I think that's why people who are on the right, many of them are saying, that's not Mueller's job. Why is Mueller actually now engaged in setting up all of the dominoes for impeachment for Democrats? That's kind of the math here. So the math here seems to be not that Mueller would have recommended prosecution in the absence of the OLC ruling, because he himself says, I didn't reach a determination on that. But that he is more saying, okay, well, if Congress wants to impeach, I set it all out for you here. It's a 448-page report. Boom, right on the table. Mueller continues.
The special counsel's office is part of the Department of Justice, and by regulation, it was bound by that department policy. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider. The department's written opinion explaining the policy makes several important points that further informed our handling of the obstruction investigation. Those points are summarized in our report, and I will describe two of them for you. First, the opinion explicitly permits the investigation of a sitting president because it is important to preserve evidence while memories are fresh and documents available.
And now he is saying we had to do all of this. So he's answering the question we just asked. Okay, so you couldn't prosecute him. So what the hell was all of this about? He says, well, we wanted to keep the memories fresh. I'm sorry, you are not in the historical record business, my friend. Okay, you're not a librarian. It is not your job to spend taxpayer dollars to keep memories fresh if you have no actual process for prosecution and if prosecution is not going to be available after the president leaves office. Right? Well, now that's the other question. Maybe what Mueller is doing here is setting up the evidence not only for impeachment, for the possibility that if the president is no longer president, then he could be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. Right? That after Trump is no longer president, no longer sitting president, the DOJ could come after him for obstruction of justice. Maybe that is what Mueller is saying here. Maybe that's the case that he's making. We have to preserve the historical record for future prosecution, even though under OLC regulations we can't prosecute him right now. That's a possibility that Mueller is leaving open. I'll explain more of that in just 1 second. First, let's talk about your neighborhood and making it safer. Ring's mission is to make neighborhoods safer. You might already know about their smart video doorbells and cameras that protect millions of people everywhere. Ring helps you stay connected to your home anywhere in the world. So if there's a package delivery or a surprise visitor, you'll get an alert. You'll be able to see, hear, and speak to them all from your phone. That is thanks to HD video and two-way audio features on Ring devices. So I have Ring at my house. I am deeply concerned about personal security. As you all know, I get a lot of death threats. I get a lot of people who are not huge fans, and that means that I really care about safety on my property. That's why I rely on Ring. As a listener, you have a special offer on a Ring starter kit available right now. Why shouldn't you have the same security I do? With a video doorbell and motion-activated floodlight cam, the starter kit has everything you need to start building a ring of security around your home. Just go to ring.com/Ben. That is ring.com/Ben. Make your property safer. Make sure that your family is safe. Now, the fact is that one of the ways that burglars come into your house very often is they ring the doorbell to see whether you're home or not. With the Ring kit, they ring your doorbell and you can pick up from your phone so they don't know whether you're home or not. Go check them out right now at ring.com/Ben for the special deal. That's ring.com/Ben. Okay, so we're going through Robert Mueller's statement in detail. So far, he's made a couple of key points. The key point seems to be, number one, that he says that OLC regulations, that the Department of Justice, Office of Legal Counsel regulations, prevented him from making a determination as to the guilt or innocence of President Trump on obstruction of justice. Okay, and a lot of people are taking that to mean, well, if the president weren't the president, he'd prosecute him. Maybe, maybe not. He didn't reach that determination. And then he makes the broader point that the president is not exonerated because he's just not exonerated. But again, that's not his standard. The question is, you basically, Mueller has left it as vague as it was before. We don't know whether Mueller would prosecute him in the absence of OLC standards. The only thing that we do know is that Barr said in April before Congress, quote, Rod Rosenstein and I asked Robert Mueller when we met with him on March 5th whether he would have made obstruction a crime, but for the OLC opinion. He made it clear several times that it was not his position. So unless Barr is perjuring himself, which presumably now Mueller will be called to testify about that by Democrats, they're not going to let him off this easy. Unless Barr perjured himself, this means that what Mueller really is doing here is setting up an impeachment inquiry. What Mueller is really doing here is saying to Democrats in Congress, listen, I provided you the roadmap. Criminal standards, criminal justice standards are not the same as impeachment standards. Go with God. It's on you now. And it's pretty obvious that, listen, you read the report, it's obvious that Mueller's team wanted to see Trump burn, right? And I'm not saying that they were unjustified in their assessment of Trump's behavior. Trump's behavior is egregious in the Mueller report. I mean, really, really bad behavior. Whether that rises to the level of criminality is questionable. And whether that level of behavior rises to the level of impeachment, I sort of doubt it. I don't think it prevents Trump from acting as an effective president in the absence of openly criminal conduct. In any case, Robert Mueller continues with his statement.
Among other things, that evidence could be used if there were co-conspirators who could be charged now. And second, the opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
Directly calling out impeachment right there. Right? What is the process other than the criminal justice system to accuse the president of wrongdoing? That is Mueller openly calling on impeachment, right? That is the impeachment process that he is invoking right there. As I say, I think that the Mueller report is basically a roadmap to impeachment, not a criminal justice standard, not a criminal, which means that he wasn't actually doing the job he was supposed to be doing. He was doing the job that Congress was supposed to be doing, which does cast some questions on what exactly was the purpose of the special counsel report in the first place. And when it came to the Starr report uncovered overt criminal activity. And the Starr report recommended impeachment based on actual crimes. Actual crimes. The Mueller report doesn't recommend even criminal activity. It doesn't even say the criminal activity took place. But they're saying, okay, well, if you investigate, maybe you can come to some sort of impeachable offense buried somewhere in here. Mueller continues.
And beyond department policy, we were guided by principles of fairness. It would be unfair to potentially accuse somebody of a crime when there can be no court resolution of the actual charge. So that was Justice Department policy. Those were the principles under which we operated, and from them we concluded that we would not reach a determination one way or the other about whether the president committed a crime. That is the office's final position, and we will not comment on any other conclusions or hypotheticals about the president.
Pause it there. So that last statement is him saying that if they call me to testify, if Democrats call me to testify, and if they ask me whether I would prosecute Trump in the absence of the OLC memo, I'm not going to answer them. Right? That is what Mueller is saying right there. He's saying, basically, here is the giant ink blot that I have provided to you. Read in it what you will. This is no longer my job. I've given you everything that you asked me to give you. I even went beyond the boundaries of what really I should be doing, right, which is uncovering criminal conduct. So if you got a problem with that, too bad. Go read the report. Keep playing him, yeah.
We conducted an independent criminal investigation and reported the results to the Attorney General, as required by department regulations. The Attorney General then concluded that it was appropriate to provide our report to Congress and to the American people. At one point in time, I requested that certain portions of the report be released. The Attorney General preferred to make the entire report public all at once, and we appreciate that the Attorney General made the report largely public, and I certainly do not question the Attorney General's good faith in that decision.
Wasn't there? So this debunks one of the Democrats' talking points. So the Democrats' talking point is that Barr obstructed the report because he didn't want the public to know about what was in there and that he was stopping Robert Mueller's great information from reaching the public. This was always a stupid contention. Barr put out his final legal finding. His original 4-page legal finding was a legal finding. It had nothing to do with impeachment. Remember, what Mueller is mostly talking about here is impeachment stuff. He's mostly not talking about criminal justice stuff. Barr is talking specifically about criminal justice stuff. Is the president worthy of prosecution? Barr says no. That was his 4-page letter. And then 3 weeks later, he releases the entire report. And this is Mueller himself saying that was not a delay that was designed to obfuscate. That was not a delay that was designed to allow Barr to hide anything. Mueller himself is saying Barr was honest when it came to releasing the report. That gets rid of one major Democratic talking point, which is that somehow in those 3 weeks, the entire narrative was spun and the report was somehow corrupted. Mueller says, listen, you can go buy it on Amazon. You want to read the report? Go buy the report. You can read it for free online. Enjoy yourself. The fact is that I don't think, this is what Mueller is saying, I don't think that Attorney General Barr was doing something deeply wrong in waiting to release the entire report as a piece, and I don't doubt his motivation in doing that. So there goes one Democratic talking point. Mueller continues.
Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner. I am making that decision myself. No one has told me whether I can or should testify or speak further about this matter. There has been discussion about an appearance before Congress. Any testimony from this office would not go beyond our report.
Pause it there. He's saying, I don't want to testify, and that is not Trump stopping me. That is not Barr stopping me. That is me stopping me. I don't feel like testifying. Now, Democrats are going to subpoena him. They're going to ask him specifically the only question that matters. In the absence of the OLC report, would you prosecute the president? Right? That's the only question they're going to be able to ask him. And did Attorney General Barr lie when he said that you wouldn't, or that at least that was not your determining factor, your sole determining factor? That's going to be the question that they ask Mueller. There's no question Democrats call him at this point. But Mueller's saying, listen, I'm a lawyer. I wrote this thing. Read it. Enjoy. It's not obstructed. Democrats have been claiming that Mueller is being obstructed by the Trump administration from testifying. There is Robert Mueller killing another Democratic talking point. So a lot of talking points are dying today in this Mueller report. Talking point number one from the Trump side, Trump's been exonerated. He has not. Talking point number two from the Trump side is that President Trump is not worthy of impeachment because no criminal justice action was taken. That one is still open because, again, the difference between impeachment and criminal justice is that impeachment is a political standard. Criminal justice is a legal standard. Those are two talking points from the Trump side. Talking points from the left, that there was obstruction by Attorney General Barr. That's been basically debunked here. And also the idea that there's current obstruction taking place, that Mueller would testify were it not for the evil Trump administration. Mueller saying, no, I don't want to talk to you guys. You're annoying me. It's basically Mueller's statement here. Now, we're going to get to the rest of Mueller's statement in just 1 second. First, hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy. You only have to go to one place to get it done, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards. But they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and then invites them to apply to your job. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one. They spotlight the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the very first day. It is so effective, we use it here at Daily Wire, which is one of the reasons why, if there's a screw-up on the show, a ZipRecruiter chosen person could replace someone here today. I know this is basically like that scene from The Dark Knight where the Joker splits the pool cue and then decide. But hey, man, we run a business around here, and you can too at ZipRecruiter. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. That is ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter.com/DAILYWIRE. ZipRecruiter is indeed the smartest way to hire. Okay, we'll get to the rest of the Mueller statement today, the groundbreaking, earth-shaking Mueller statement. We'll also get to Justin Amash, the Michigan congressperson, who's now pushing for impeachment. There's no question impeachment talk is going to heat up after Mueller's statement. We'll get to all that in just a second. First, go subscribe over at dailywire.com. When you do, you get the rest of this show live. Like, you get the rest of the show. Plus, you get 2 additional hours this afternoon. We're going to have plenty of guests to talk about what Mueller said here, what legal standards should be. We're going to get into abortion. We're going to get into all sorts of hot-button issues because we do every day here on the Ben Shapiro Show. That just costs you $9.99 a month. Now, I'm making an explicit appeal to you. One of the reasons that we need you to subscribe is because it does make us, quote-unquote, technology-proof. It prevents the left from targeting us and trying to make our show unsustainable. I mean, there are people who listen to the show every day at Media Matters who are deliberately attempting to take down the show on a daily basis. One of the things that helps us prevent that sort of garbage is your subscription. So we really appreciate you helping us out. Also, when you spend $99 a year, you get the annual subscription, which comes along with this, the Leftist Tears Hot or Cold Tumbler. Check that out. Oh, yeah, that's good stuff right there. You get that for $99 a year, which is cheaper than the monthly subscription. Also, we have great Sunday specials coming up, like terrific ones coming up every Sunday. You get those on Saturday when you're a subscriber, plus questions that are behind the paywall. You get to ask questions in our mailbag, all sorts of goodies. Go check us out right now. Also, check us out at YouTube and iTunes. Once again, we are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast and radio show in the nation.